He bombarded headquarters with pleas to send him to Nicaragua, where war had broken out, and Marines were trying to put down a native bandit uprising. So war's going on in Nicaragua, and he says, hey, send me down there. Back to the book. Nicaragua was even more rugged than Haiti, a green rolling country of jungle and plains, dominated by towering highlands upon which were tumbled mountain masses. For many years, revolutions had torn the land despite the presence of U.S. Marines, and now a bitter new war had called them back after a year's absence. In the north lay an unconquered Indian empire whose people did not recognize the central government, and there, where he moved back and forth across the border of Honduras, was the rebel chief Augusto Cesar Sandino. So that's what's going on in Nicaragua. Chesty Puller shows up, reported to General E.R. Beadle, and he says, I'll give you a company up in the Segovias in the north. I understand you like to mix it up. Big mix up. Big mix it up. So this is, again, there's so many things that he does that just build this incredible reputation that he ends up with, and here's one of them. The native boss was a fire-eating brigand who had been appointed as the local jefe politico. Puller invaded his office, accompanied by a sergeant, and in brief words told the terrorists that he had come to restore order and that troublemakers would fare badly. He ended quietly, "You will be held responsible for any further disorder with your life." As he talked, he saw a partially open drawer in the desk before the chief and the butt of a revolver. The boss looked as if he wanted to snatch the pistol. "Go ahead," Puller said. "Use it if you can. We'll settle this once and for all. You'd better be fast." Like, who does that? I'll tell you who does that. Chesty Puller does that. Puller's career as a guerrilla fighter now opened in earnest. In February 1930, he was ordered to clear bandits from the area of San Antonio. Bill Lee, who had earlier served 3 years in Nicaragua, had been pleading for a chance to return. Lee was a tall, muscular athlete from Massachusetts who had been 16 years in the Corps and was conditioned by years of playing fullback on the team of a coal-burning battleship and by boxing and pulling an oar on a crew. Puller unhesitatingly chose him to help direct Company M, and Lee found Lewis an ideal commander. This is classic. This is what Lee says about his commander, which is Chesty Puller. "He never really gave me orders. He just told me what headquarters wanted, asked me if I knew the country, and to get up the men we needed. He was a common sense officer, and you always knew where you stood with him. When he was displeased about something I'd done, he never chewed me out, as so many inexperienced officers would have done. He would say, if I'd been doing that, I'd have done it this way. And that would be the end of it. We got on like brothers. Most important of all, he was not green when he first came to Nicaragua. Haiti had taught him jungle fighting, and he took to the new country like a native." That paragraph right there is just... It's so important, especially, again, when people get the image of a Marine and of Chesty Puller that he's just going to whip everyone into shape. Like, no, that's not a good leader. That is not a good leader. Back to the book. General McDougall recommended Puller for a Navy Cross, citing 5 fights against, so this is after he's been there for a little while, citing 5 fights against superior numbers without loss to himself, the 9 known enemy dead and numerous but uncounted wounded, and the impressive loot of munitions, animals, food, and captured military dispatches. The recommendation ended thus by his intelligent and forceful leadership, without thought of his own personal safety, by great physical exertion, and by suffering many hardships, he surmounted all obstacles and dealt 5 successive and severe blows against organized banditry in the Republic of Nicaragua. So there you go. That's what he's getting after down in Nicaragua. Here's another Captain E.E. Linsert, who is the intelligence officer in the Marine Brigade. He saw that some of the people were jealous. So he started getting a little bit famous. People started writing about him. There was an article in the New York Times about him, and people started having some professional jealousy. Back to the book, and this is Linsett talking. Now and then the New York Times got some of these stories from Nicaraguan papers, and Puller's name became widely known. A few officers around headquarters, who thought of themselves as Clausewitz types, muttered criticisms of Puller and said he was a publicity hound. I knew that the opposite was true, and that Lewis spent virtually his whole life in this period on the trail, deep in enemy country, while our staff officer friends sat on their duffs in the cities, far removed from the warfare. But you get that professional jealousy. There's a classic example of it. Here's a General Julian Smith talking about Lewis Puller. He was probably the bravest man I ever knew. His was a cool courage, not one of desperation. About the only way to contact the enemy there was to let them ambush him. He would go anywhere without support, knowing that if he got in a jam, he had to get himself out. He never hesitated. He invited that kind of work. He's getting after it.